Did you know that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart World have a LAN mode so that you can link consoles together and play locally with a more stable connection than wireless play? By pressing L, R, and clicking on the left stick on the main menu of both games, the wireless play option becomes a LAN play option. This is a feature most people don't know exists, but it's actually the way I spent most of my time in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. My friends and I would get together and have full-fledged Mario Kart LAN parties, and one of our favorite parts of this is what we called Around the World, where we'd play every track in the game in order. To be honest, I kind of forgot Double Dash already had something akin to this, and it was officially called All Cup Tour, hence our different name for it. We can't currently do this in Mario Kart World simply because a vast majority of us don't have Switch 2s yet, let alone the game. But while thinking about how a Mario Kart World LAN would go, it dawned on me that we could quite literally go around the world with a route that visits every course in the game. Now obviously there's a million different ways to do this in this game, and there's no real wrong way to do it. I'd seen this route floating around the internet, which appears to trace back to a YouTube video by Get Lucky, which starts at Peach Stadium to Moo Moo Meadows, goes all of the way around the game world back to Peach Stadium, before of course heading to Rainbow Road for the finale. Now, there's nothing wrong with this route, and I actually quite like the idea of starting and virtually ending at Peach Stadium. But I wanted a route that would be a great way to show new players of the game the world, and starting anywhere but Mario Bros. Circuit would feel wrong to me. Plus, it doesn't reach many of the game's Mushroom and Flower Cup tracks until very late in the game, and I wanted a more nice, steady progression of courses, ideally resulting in courses like Bowser's Castle, as late in the route as possible. So I decided to sit down and make my own route. And along the way, accidentally found myself falling down a rabbit hole of different ways to tackle an all-cup tour. Now, in my idea of an all-cup tour, we'd do a 3-lap race, then race to the next destination, then that 3-lap race, then so on and so forth until we visited every destination. Sure, including the 3-lap versions may seem like overkill, given it would effectively mean 4 laps at each course, especially in local split screen where there are no free-roaming intermissions. However, when I tried to rank all 232 routes in the game, I threw in the towel after 12 connected routes in a row because I was bored out of my skull from too many dual-connected routes. So I feel 3-lap dedicated races are necessary to break up the long, boring drives. Obviously, if you were doing such an all-cup tour, this isn't something you'd need to do, but it'll become relevant later, so just know that unless I say otherwise, when I say something like Mario Bros. Circuit to Crown City to Whistle Stop Summit, I actually mean race at Mario Bros. Circuit, then Mario Bros. Circuit to Crown City, then just Crown City, then Crown City to Whistle Stop Summit, and so on and so forth. Speaking of those courses, let's begin this first-timer route. As previously discussed, I wanted to start where the game naturally wants players to start, at Mario Bros. Circuit. From here, seeing as how I want a nice steady progression of levels, let's do the most obvious thing and just do the Mushroom Cup. So, Mario Bros. Circuit to Crown City, to Whistle Stop Summit, to DK Spaceport. By the way, it doesn't affect the route, but even with 3-lap races, I think doing DK Spaceport alone is wholly unnecessary here, since we do the race in its entirety as part of the connected route. So, when I discuss race totals, keep in mind I'm actually leaving a dedicated race there out. Now, DK Spaceport actually has a rather long, albeit somewhat boring route that leads directly into the Flower Cup opener of Desert Hills, so we may as well head there next. It races through the river in a canyon that actually weaves under Whistle Stop Summit, so I like seeing places that we've already been above. But it's also partially upriver, so you're actually driving slower than normal at points, which really hinders the gameplay. Still, I think it just makes a little too much sense to do the Flower Cup after the Mushroom Cup, so we may as well just use this route anyway. It does actually end in Desert Hills backwards, which makes it a bit odd for the first-time player that we'd be seeing it backwards before forwards, especially so if you're not doing the 3-lap versions afterwards, in which case they only see it backward. However, it does add a little bit of variety into the route, and I think it's good to show first-time players that sometimes these connected routes can throw a curveball at the destination. Speaking of adding variety to the route, part of me wanted to go out of order here for the Flower Cup, since, in case you don't know, traveling from either Wario Stadium or Airship Fortress to Shy Guy Bazaar actually ends in an entirely new destination, which I'll call Daisy Palace. Unfortunately, Desert Hills actually doesn't easily link up to any other course in the Flower Cup except Shy Guy Bazaar. The only other course it links up to, in fact, that we haven't already done is Koopa Troopa Beach, which is not only the complete opposite direction of where we want to go, but is also one of the worst routes in the game due to its length and ever-increasingly boring layout. Also, as an aside, even though we got here from DK Spaceport, we can't actually go back that route in the reverse direction, which is a little bizarre to me. Back on topic, this means we'll just go through the Flower Cup as normal and progress through normal Shy Guy Bazaar. This also actually brings up a positive to the connected routes, however, and that it means that you can save unique routes like Daisy Palace for later All Cup Tour routes, giving each All Cup Tour their own unique feel. More on that later. Anyways, from Shy Guy Bazaar, we'll head on to Wario Stadium, and then to Airship Fortress, closing out the Flower Cup. From here, we've got a bit of an impasse, however, because next would be the Star Cup, but it's clear on the other side of the world from here. Even though we're on the edge of Bowser's domain, as I said before, I'd like to save Bowser's Castle for as late in the route as possible, so we'll skirt the edge of it and head to Toad's Factory instead. I know I said I wanted a steady increase of difficulty and followed the game's cups in order up to this point, and this is technically part of the penultimate cup in this game. However, it was in the Mushroom Cup in Mario Kart Wii, which is also true of Moo Moo Meadows, which is also in the Lightning Cup in this game, which highlights how weird that cup is, and why I think they're fair game for including here. From Toad's Factory, we may as well hit Choco Mountain since we're in the area, and we won't be back here until the end of the tour, and then resume our journey east to Moo Moo Meadows. Now, from here, we can actually reach the Star Cup opener of DK Pass, but there's a few reasons why I'm not going to do that. First, this guarantees that at some point we'll have to cross over ourselves since we'll have cut clear across the entire map, which actually we've already guaranteed by bypassing Peach Stadium, and as you'll see later is something we'll eventually have to do when we talk about other tours, but hey, if I can avoid doing it more than once for this tour, I will. Second is that we're already going out of order at this point. There's no other cups we'll be able to go in order from here on out anyways, and we're basically in the mid-game course area already. Third is that there's a specific route that I wanted to include in a second here because of the way it reveals a certain location, and going to the Star Cup first makes that not really possible. Fourth is that, honestly, I'm dumb and didn't realize it until well into recording this video, and the decisions I make here end up reverberating throughout the rest of the video, and so the narrative will completely fall apart if I don't go to Dandelion Depths instead. So instead of heading for DK Pass in the Star Cup, we'll go to Dandelion Depths. From here, we'll head south to Cheep Cheep Falls on a route which will become extremely important to my descent into madness later. But for now, we'll leave it be. Then we'll head to Salty Salty Speedway on a route I specifically wanted to include not because I think it's actually fun, but because of the way it enters the course by traveling under the giant dome and then gliding majestically into Lagoon City. Again, routes like these aren't exactly fun to play. In fact, this route is honestly pretty terrible from a gameplay perspective, which is exactly why these routes are so reviled in online matchmaking. However, they do sell the feeling of going on a trip and seeing the sights, which is more appreciated in a casual setting with friends. As such, on a first-time player tour, I think moments like this are worth going out of their way to include. From here, we head back towards Faraway Oasis, then have to make an awkward trip out of our way to include Koopa Troopa Beach. It's a bit awkward to include it here because it just feels like we're naturally going south and then all of a sudden we have to head really far west again, and we end up taking part of the route that we take to it right back again once we're done there. But this does have the benefit of including the least amount of open ocean going to and from it, and the less time spent on the open ocean in this game, the better. Plus, we get to go from Koopa Troopa Beach to Dino Dino Jungle, which features the most unique Dino Dino Jungle route. You actually start the lap backwards, then take a new turn and end up forwards again. This isn't super great as a first-time visit to the course, since you're experiencing it in its weirdest form first, but then again, I'll take a little bit of variety here and there. We continue on through the jungle towards Great Question Mark Block Ruins, and then on to Peach Beach. Speaking of Peach Beach, it's actually one of the most difficult courses to include in my format of travel to the course, then do the 3-lap version, then move on. because as a 3-section course, you end up doing a vast majority of it when you use it as a destination on a connected route. But not all of it. Every single route to Peach Beach excludes the first section, which is a bit of a problem since it's the actual Peach Beach track from Double Dash. I mean, sure, this is the shortest section of the track, and the addition of water travel makes it largely just an oval, so it's not a huge loss from a gameplay perspective, but also, that's Peach Beach. That's the track. When I cover race counts later, I'll still include a dedicated race here for now, unlike DK Spaceport, but if you're using my suggested format of doing the 3-lap races between the connected races, you may want to ditch this one too. Unfortunately, we've now got to pay our dues for playing Mario Kart World and take a long open water route to Wario Shipyard. Yeah, you knew we had to slot in one of these long, boring, straight water routes sooner or later. Although, given the choppy seas along the way, this is at least a bit better than some of the routes in the Southern Bay's open water. From here, we'll head up to Sky High Sunday and then over to DK Pass. I'm actually not a huge fan of this route because you eventually end up on the same ski slopes between DK Pass and Starview Peak, which, spoiler alert, we'll see again in the next route. But as boring as the ascent up the slope from DK Pass to Starview Peak is to drive, it really sells the idea of traveling up this giant mountain to the observatory at the top. Compare this to the Sky High Sunday to Starview Peak route, where you're largely in caves and then emerge to just kind of find yourself there suddenly. Again, we're targeting a first-timer route here, so preserving these moments as much as possible is one of our goals here. So DK Pass first, then Starview Peak it is. We're largely just skirting the outer edge of the map for a while here, which happens to include a lot of the game's more interesting original tracks. So next is Boo Cinema, then Acorn Heights, then Dry Bones Burnout, before at long last it's time for Bowser's Castle. We're actually in the endgame here, so it's time to make a beeline for Rainbow Road via the fastest route possible. So we head to Mario Circuit, then Peach Stadium, then finally, at long last, we end our trip at Rainbow Road. Oh, and I feel it should be obvious, but much like DK Spaceport, we'll only do one Rainbow Road race, since really, Peach Stadium to Rainbow Road is Rainbow Road to me. It just puts me in an entirely different headspace than just Rainbow Road by itself. So that's the route I came up with. Including dedicated races on every track except DK Spaceport and Rainbow Road, that's 57 races by my count, which is a lot of racing, but then again, so was 96 races in a row with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I've done that before too. Now, if you're looking at all this and going, that's nice and all, but I just wanted to ditch the individual races, and I also wanted to do a nice even 32 races to fill the max versus race count, we'll get back to you much later, because honestly I didn't even consider it until after the script was originally written and recorded. Still, I was looking at the route closer, and I found a few things here and there that bothered me. For starters, this is intended as a first-timer's route through the game, but it actually misses a couple key landmarks on the map. The giant waterfall east of Faraway Oasis, and Crown Bridge. Now, if you're like me, you're probably thinking, good, these routes are terrible and I never want to see them again in my life. But again, the point of this route is to be a first-timer's run through the game, so I kind of feel like I should hit every landmark in the game. This is doubly true of Crown Bridge, given it'd be a little weird for first-time players to see it for the first time as they're approaching it on the way to Rainbow Road, so we should probably slot that one in. Adding Crown Bridge into the route is relatively easy, although it does make the beginning of the trip a little weirder. Since the only routes that use the bridge are the routes connecting Crown City and Faraway Oasis, we'll need to use one of those routes, meaning we can't just do the Mushroom Cup anymore. Thankfully, however, Mario Bros. Circuit already has a route to Whistle Stop Summit, so removing Crown City from its current place is easy. I'm not a huge fan of this, since with our current route, it pretty much means your only reprieve from desert and wasteland tracks in like the first 7 routes is DK Spaceport, but without much more of a giant reworking, it'll have to do. Since we're already heading west from Faraway Oasis to hit Koopa Troopa Beach, we can instead go from Faraway Oasis to Crown City via the bridge, and then Crown City to Koopa Troopa Beach, reconnecting with our original route with the Koopa Troopa Beach to Dino Dino Jungle route. Adding in the giant waterfall and Crown Bridge, however, results in a much stranger route. Since the giant waterfall is basically a route that's designed to go around Faraway Oasis, we have to deliberately bypass it from Salty Speedway. So we'll take the reworked route we just made and effectively reverse it. Salty Salty Speedway to Dino Dino Jungle crosses the waterfall, and from there we can head to Koopa Troopa Beach, then Crown City, then cross the bridge back to Faraway Oasis, and finally on to Great Question Mark Block Ruins and the rest of the route. It gets the job done, but it looks, I don't know, a bit stupid. Like, we're suddenly going in a big circle at the bottom of the map as if we were trying to go to every destination, then went, oh crap, we forgot like 3 of them, and then had to circle back and grab them quickly. Obviously, there's probably a much better way to do all of this, and that's kind of the beauty of the route system, but without throwing it all out and starting over from scratch, this is what I've got. Another issue I had was Mario Circuit. I was hoping to cut a race out by using a route that hits all 3 circuits so there'd be no need to play it by itself, much like how we handled DK Spaceport. I went to look up all of the routes to Mario Circuit to see if any other than Acorn Heights did all 3, and nope, turns out it's just that one. So if we want to cut the Mario Circuit dedicated race out, we'd have to come at it from that route. Thankfully, we can just head directly from Boo Cinema to Dry Bones Burnout, so it's not much of an issue taking Acorn Heights out of its current spot. But obviously we can't just head directly from Bowser's Castle to Mario Circuit anymore. And Bowser's Castle doesn't connect directly to Acorn Heights without first using a different course. And they're all currently spoken for, so something will have to give elsewhere in the route. Dry Bones Burnout is out because we need it to cross the entire map from Boo Cinema. But we could take a second look at Toad's Factory. Toad's Factory connects to Acorn Heights, and it can be reached from Bowser's Castle, so we'll move it there. However, this leaves a gap earlier in the tour because we were previously using it to connect Airship Fortress and Choggle Mountain, and those 2 courses don't link directly. So instead we'll move Wario Stadium so that instead of Shy Guy Bazaar to Wario Stadium to Airship Fortress, we go Bazaar to Fortress to Stadium, then on to Choco Mountain. So our new route does lose Bowser's Castle being super close to the end, but restores the Special Cup in its entirety, and also removes the need for an extra Mario Circuit race, bringing the total down to 56. And wait a minute, what was the point of all this again? Why am I doing this again? Well, it boils down to the fact that connecting every course in the game while giving myself certain criteria to meet accidentally resulted in a fun logic puzzle. Like, sure, you could just start anywhere on the map and go to all the places, and really the only thing you'd have to do is end with Peach Stadium to Rainbow Road, since Rainbow Road doesn't go anywhere, and also why the hell would you want to end anywhere else? But as soon as you give yourself just 1 or 2 extra criteria, it suddenly becomes a puzzle needing a solution, and I don't know, I guess I just like logic puzzles. Maybe a little too much. Which brings us all the way back to Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls. This route is notable because unlike every other route to Cheep Cheep Falls, it actually enters the track by jumping over the falls themselves. And unlike pretty much every other route in the game, you end up doing not just 1 lap of the destination, but a lap and a half. Now again, I was planning on using a format of drive to place, then do dedicated race at that place, then drive to next place. But part of me was already worried about it feeling repetitive doing 4 laps instead of 3 at every location. And now there's a route that results in 4.5 laps using this format, which definitely seems like too much. Now, I could have gone from Dandelion Depths to DK Pass first and then to Cheep Cheep Falls, but again, I wanted the DK Pass to Starview Peak route for the visuals. So as I was sitting there thinking about this, I had a thought. Forget about 4.5 laps. What if I tried to do a route that hit every location once, but tried to avoid the 4-lap problem as much as possible? What if I tried to maximize routes with unique destinations? First, we need to clarify what I consider a unique destination. A unique destination would be any route in which the end destination is changed considerably from its normal 3-lap route. This could be a unique route altogether, such as Shy Guy Bazaar routes that end in Daisy Palace. It could be doing the destination backwards, such as what we saw with DK Spaceport to Desert Hills. It could be using an altered lap, which redirects the lap considerably, such as with Koopa Troopa Beach to Dino Dino Jungle. What I'm not considering a unique destination is one that is entirely contained within the 3-lap variant of the track, or doesn't do enough in my eyes to be a considerably different experience to the original track. For example, routes going to Crown City that end in the Downtown Rooftops course, such as the Mario Bros. Circuit route seen in the Mushroom Cup, don't count, because that's just the second lap of the 3-lap variant. Routes to Crown City that instead end in the beach or Northern City routes do count because they go through parts of the city not seen in the 3-section variant. Routes that enter Toad's Factory through the side or Peach Stadium from the bay don't count because they're really only cutting off one turn of the original course. Although I guess the argument could be made that the Peach Stadium one is significant given the role the corner cut on that first turn often plays in determining the winner of the course, but these are my rules, dang it, and there's far stranger Peach Stadium routes to use. You know the one. I'm also only taking into consideration the final section of the route, so while the Cheep Cheep Falls to Salty Salty Speedway route mentioned earlier does go through a new part of Lagoon City that many other routes do not, it doesn't count because the actual proper lap you do of Salty Salty Speedway is still the same as the 3-lap variant. So let's try to form an all-cup tour that hits as many of these unique destination routes as we can while still only hitting each destination once. First of all, big shout out to Retro Archive, whose video of all 202 interconnecting routes was a big help in planning this, because I really didn't want to have to play every route to know what was unique. There's a link in the description of this video along with Get Lucky's video on the all-cup tour that I referenced earlier. We start, of course, with Peach Beach. Why Peach Beach specifically? Well, as we discussed earlier, technically the most unique route for this course is its 3-lap variant, since it's the only way to actually get the GCN Peach Beach section, and so none of the routes to it feature a more unique destination than the destination itself. Plus, the entire point of this exercise was to minimize repeating laps, and you'd have to repeat 2/3 of this track if you drove to it then raced it again individually, so this is the place to start. Also, obviously, I'm throwing out the start from Mario Bros. Circuit rule since I'm no longer considering this a route for first-timers, and that track also has a unique destination route. So, we haven't gone anywhere, and we already have our first unique destination. Now, we have to consider our options more carefully on this all-cup tour, because if a place we can travel to has a unique destination route that doesn't come from our current destination, we don't want to use that route. For example, we could go to Dino Dino Jungle, but as we talked about earlier, the only Dino Dino Jungle route that starts the final lap in reverse comes from Koopa Troopa Beach, so we have to race those two courses in that order. So, to cut to the chase, our next few destinations we'll go to have no unique destinations, nor do they have an exclusive unique route to any destination we absolutely need to use. We go from Peach Beach to Great Block Ruins to Salty Salty Speedway to Wario Shipyard. From Wario Shipyard, however, we head to DK Pass since this is actually a backwards DK Pass route, bringing us up to 2 unique destinations. From there, we once again have a bunch of normal routes to places that don't have unique destinations. DK Pass to Sky High Sundae to Starview Peak to Boo Cinema to Acorn Heights. We'll actually go from Acorn Heights to Mario Circuit now and do the all-in-one destination, not because I'm considering it a unique destination by definition, but because it just kind of worked out and saves us a race in the process. From here, we continue on to Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls to wait, Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls. Isn't this literally the reason we're doing this route, to avoid extra laps, and we're using the route that spawned this whole conversation in the first place? Yeah, I honestly didn't recognize this until I was done and writing this script, and upon further review I couldn't find a workaround that ended up resulting in the entire route in the trash. Our option of Dandelion Depths to DK Pass, then Cheep Cheep Falls we considered last time to fix this problem doesn't work yet again because DK Pass has a unique destination, and coming from Dandelion Depths isn't one of them. When we're done with Cheep Cheep Falls, we have to head to Moo Moo Meadows since there's only 2 routes that end in that course backwards, and the other is from Peach Stadium, which we must use as the penultimate course before Rainbow Road, so we can't work around it in any way that doesn't involve the Cheep Cheep Falls to Moo Moo Meadows route. I thought, while writing this script, that I had found a way I hadn't considered looking at this map ripped from the official site of the game, where I'd actually put Dandelion Depths between DK Pass and Starview Peak, and then go from Mario Circuit down to Cheep Cheep Falls, but it turns out this map straight up lies. There is no route between Mario Circuit and Cheep Cheep Falls in either direction. So, yeah, I kind of just surrendered and used the route anyways. Yeah, I'm sorry that that's what spawned this entire thing, but I'm kind of just stuck with it. So, with that disaster out of the way, we'll go from Cheep Cheep Falls to Moo Moo Meadows, since, as I just mentioned, that results in Moo Moo Meadows backwards. So we're finally up to 3 unique destinations. I know we've come a long way and we don't really have much to show for it, but it really boils down to the west side of the map simply having more of these routes than the east side. It's on to a few more normal courses first, however, with Moo Moo Meadows to Toad's Factory to Drybone's Burnout to Bowser's Castle. From there, we head to Wario Stadium, which is a backwards track, so that makes 4 unique destinations. We go to Airship Fortress next, and then to Shy Guy Bazaar, which, as mentioned earlier, is a Daisy Palace route, so that makes 5. We cross way back to Choco Mountain, and this route is one that features a unique destination where you start the lap backwards, cut into the mountain via a new road, then rejoin the forwards route, cutting out about a third of the lap, similar to the route we discussed in Dino Dino Jungle earlier. Up to 6 unique destinations now, and we quickly add a 7th by heading to Mario Bros. Circuit next, which is a backwards lap. Although, perhaps calling it a unique destination is a bit of a stretch. Yeah, see, the funny thing about Mario Bros. Circuit is traveling to it from any other course except Shy Guy Bazaar results in doing the track backwards. So I guess maybe doing it forwards is technically the more unique way, but given my idea of the All Cup Tour, you'd do a 3-lap race at each non-section course. We've got that baked into the route already. We've got a 4th unique destination route in a row by heading from Mario Bros. Circuit to Desert Hills, which ends in Desert Hills backwards, so we've got 8 total now. We take a bit of a break from the unique destinations by heading to Whistle Stop Summit, then DK Spaceport. However, we follow it up with a route to Koopa Troopa Beach, which ends in a unique backwards route. Although I feel a bit dirty calling a circle of only right turns unique, but I suppose in this case it's more unique than a circle of left turns? As discussed oh so long ago, we must go to Dino Dino Jungle from Koopa Troopa Beach, since it's also unique, so we're up to 10 now. Then it's up to Faraway Oasis to finally close out this area of the map before making our way across Crown Bridge yet again to, hey, did you know that turning on auto steering and auto accelerate automatically tricks too? Huh. Anyways, yeah, it's back to Crown City for yet another unique route. This one covers much of the first section of the 3-lap race backwards and also features a couple unique parts of the city not covered in any other route too. From Crown City, we close out our tour with a trip to our final unique destination, the ever-popular Peach Stadium Oval route. Yeah, I said unique, not good. This sorry excuse for a lap is definitely not covered by the 3-lap route, that's for sure. Oh, and of course we end the whole thing by heading once again to Rainbow Road. This makes for a grand total of 56 races if you're doing the 3-lap races at every stop along the way, except DK Spaceport, Mario Circuit, and Rainbow Road. This also makes 12 of the game's 30 locations being visited using a unique destination route. And by my count, that's actually the maximum you can do because we hit a unique destination at every location that had one. I mean, we didn't hit all of the unique destination routes, but that's because some locations have multiple. Crown City is a beach route that's unique in addition to the route we took. Technically, Peach Stadium has the oval route in reverse too, which by our definition makes it a unique variant of the unique destination, which is the highest praise I could possibly give to a route this bad. I suppose you could do a route that hits every destination's unique routes by dropping the 1 stop per location rule, but this video is already way too long and probably about as interesting as the DK Spaceport to Peach Stadium route to boot, so I'm just gonna wrap things up here. Is what I would say, or rather did say, when I originally recorded this script. However, looking back at Get Lucky's All Cup Tour video, I saw people in the comments lamenting that this wasn't a nice even 32 races, so you wouldn't be able to race at all and cleanly fill the max race count in versus mode. To be honest, this was never even a consideration for me since my friends always just left this at 4 races. We just never really cared about keeping score across the whole thing. It was more about the journey than the destination, and also we would have to remake the room often anyways mid-set in the event of a disconnect, which still happens occasionally even in land mode. Plus, I kinda came at this with the assumption that the 3-lap races were a given, which automatically made it impossible to fit it into one set of races. Originally, I was just going to pretend I didn't see this comment and be on my merry way. But despite how few people may watch this video, I know someone, somewhere, is going to be disappointed I didn't cover this, so let's try to do this as quickly as possible, shall we? So, starting back with the first timer tour, we'll start with the final version we had since we already included Acorn Heights to Mario Circuit, which I consider a must in this type of route, so you can experience the entire 3-circuit race. Since we are starting at Mario Bros. Circuit here, we'll use the Grand Prix rules and still do a dedicated race there, but we'll cut out every other dedicated race, leaving us with only 30 races. Since we're no longer doing the 3-lap variant of Crown City, and we're currently coming at it from Faraway Oasis, which gives the Northern City route, we can actually reinsert it into the Mushroom Cup as well, since it just uses the different Downtown Rooftops route. With Crown City back in the Mushroom Cup and reappearing again later in the race, we're up to 31 races. So from here, I'd say our main 2 options for including an additional unique track would be Daisy Palace over at Shy Guy Bazaar, and the stupid oval nobody likes at Peach Stadium, so Daisy Palace it is! We'll actually restore the original Flower Cup route, since Shy Guy Bazaar links directly to Choco Mountain anyways, which was originally why we went out of order, was to link Airship Fortress and Choco Mountain. So to recap, it's now the entire Mushroom Cup in order, then the entire Flower Cup in order, then we'll go back to Shy Guy Bazaar from Airship Fortress, which will give us the Daisy Palace route, and then on to Choco Mountain and the rest of the tour as we last left it. There you go, first timer route reorganized for 32 clean races. Easy, huh? Except, if you recall correctly, there were a few times I said, oh, except you'll see a weird version of this track first, but that's not a problem, we're doing 3-lap races. And, well, we're not doing 3-lap races anymore. Okay, that's not ideal, but I'll just work around it. So we'll just go until we hit a problem. Mario Bros. Circuit, Crown City, Whistle Stop Summit, DK Spaceport, so far so good. DK Spaceport goes to Desert Hills backwards, however, so we can't do that. Okay, so it can go to Koopa Troopa Beach instead, but that's also a backwards route, so that's out. In fact, the only place DK Spaceport goes that's a normal route, excluding the courses we've already been to, is Peach Stadium, which we really don't want to go to this early since we're saving it for the end. Alright, DK Spaceport is a bit of a dead end at the moment without using up Peach Stadium, so let's work backwards to Whistle Stop Summit. Turns out Whistle Stop Summit only goes to 2 different destinations that are not unique. DK Spaceport, which obviously we don't want to go to yet because of the reasons we just mentioned, and Crown City, which is where we just came from. So, this is going to require a total rework, isn't it? Okay, so before we begin again, let's just lay some ground rules, shall we? We must start at Mario Bros. Circuit. We'll try to keep early courses early in the route, although as you'll see in a bit, that's a lot easier said than done. We'll try to hit as many landmarks on the map as possible, or preserve visual reveals of courses where we can. We can only use each destination once, unless it has a very unique destination route like Daisy Palace or Crown City. However, I'm adding a rule that even in those scenarios, we must hit the most standard route first. So normal Shy Guy Bazaar must come before Daisy Palace, and Crown City's Downtown Rooftops route must come before any other. Okay, with that in mind, let's try again. Alright, so we're starting at Mario Bros. Circuit, that much is clear. Crown City has many places it can go, but from there on, the Mushroom Cup becomes a bit of an issue, and many of its other routes take us away from those courses, so let's not go there next. I still want to roughly keep the early courses as early in the route as possible, since this is intended for first timers, so we'll instead look west towards the Flower Cup. Mario Bros. Circuit to Desert Hills is also a backwards route, but Shy Guy Bazaar is not, so we'll go there first. Heading to Desert Hills next results in a normal route, so let's go there next. From Desert Hills, let's head back to the Mushroom Cup since we're still early in the route. We could go to Crown City and continue the Mushroom Cup from there, but eventually we'll end up at the DK Spaceport and Whistle Stop Summit dead ends discussed earlier. So we'll go to Whistle Stop Summit first instead. DK Spaceport can go to Crown City, but it's the Northern City route and we want to go to the Downtown Standard route first, so at this point we've pretty much exhausted all of its other non-unique routes except Koopa Troopa Beach. Seeing as how we'll eventually find ourselves back in the area later on because of Crown Bridge and Koopa Troopa Beach, let's just hold off on DK Spaceport until then. Instead, we'll go from Whistle Stop Summit to Crown City, which gives us the downtown route. Now, at this point, I really wanted to head back and wrap up the rest of the Flower Cup, but unfortunately ran into about a million problems along the way because, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of unique destination routes on the west side of the map. Trying to avoid them all, like landmines buried beneath the ground, and not go to Bowser's Castle, constantly caused me to run into dead ends at every turn. So I've decided I'll just save them for the end when we eventually head back for Daisy Palace and tackle this from an entirely different direction. So we'll instead head all the way from Crown City to Moo Moo Meadows. From Moo Moo Meadows, we'll head to Cheep Cheep Falls, and a bit of irony. Yeah, we finally removed the Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls route from the itinerary, and to be honest, I now realized we could have won our original route too. You see, I originally thought I needed to go from Boo Cinema to Dry Bones Burnout to cross the world, and then eventually use Toad's Factory to link Bowser's Castle to the Special Cup. However, I realized while putting together this tour that wasn't the case, and I could instead use Dandelion Depths and Toad's Factory to cross the world, then use Dry Bones Burnout to link Bowser's Castle to Acorn Heights. In some ways, this route makes much more sense, since you're doing less crisscrossing of your own path, and we'll be using a variant of it later on in the tour we're building here as well. The irony is, I actually wanted to use Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls here, seeing as how we definitely aren't doing the 3-lap routes, and jumping over the falls into the course is a nice moment for first-timers. It's really only problematic if you're doing the 3 laps between races anyways, and this entire tour is assuming you're not. However, so many of the courses we need to link together on the west side of the map have so many unique destination routes that I just couldn't string together a coherent route that crossed the map using Dry Bones Burnout first, so I finally opted to remove Dandelion Depths from this spot and slot it in later. From here, we actually just follow our old route for a long while with one exception. So we'll start with Cheep Cheep Falls, to Salty Salty Speedway, then across the waterfall to Dino Dino Jungle, then on to Koopa Troopa Beach, but then we break our chain of courses with repetitive names and go to DK Spaceport, before we return to Crown City for our first of 2 extra races, since this route heads to the northern city. We'll then head across the bridge back to Faraway Oasis, and on to Great Block Ruins, Peach Beach, Warrior Shipyard, Sky High Sunday, DK Pass, Starview Peak, and then Boo Cinema. As mentioned earlier, we'll cross the map using Dandelion Depths to Toad's Factory. From there, it's off to Choco Mountain, then on to Wario Stadium, before it's on to Shy Guy Bazaar again, for our second extra stop with the Daisy Palace route. Then it's on to Airship Fortress, then Bowser's Castle, then Dry Bones Burnout, before finally ending with the Special Cup in its entirety. So, there you go. 32 races, starting at Mario Brothers Circuit to Rainbow Road, hitting every destination once except Shy Guy Bazaar and Crown City, while ensuring we only use normal routes plus 2 extras, while ensuring any revisits come only after normal routes, while ensuring we hit every landmark, while ensuring we hit Mario Circuit in its entirety, while ensuring Bowser's Castle as late in the process as possible, while ensuring I have a mental breakdown in the process. Well, since we've gone this far, we might as well just make our Unique Destinations Tour 32 race compatible. And as an extra objective, let's use the unique routes we didn't use for our main run. You'd think this might be a challenge, but thankfully it's quite easy if we simply start with our route from earlier, although this does assume you're fine with a Peach Beach 3-section race to start. As we discussed during the Dandelion Depths to Cheep Cheep Falls debacle, Peach Stadium is the only other course other than Cheep Cheep Falls that links up to Moo Moo Meadows backwards. And as luck would have it, Cheep Cheep Falls to Peach Stadium gives us the other main unique destination route for Peach Stadium. The stupid oval backwards. Yeah, it's a little dumb that we're doing this same loop forward and backwards, but hey, neither are part of the 3-lap race, so it definitely counts. So yeah, we'll just slot Peach Stadium in between Cheep Cheep Falls and Moo Moo Meadows, bringing us up to 31 races. For 32, we'll slot in a revisit to Crown City between Choco Mountain and Mario Brothers Circuit. Choco Mountain to Crown City gives us the beach and water route we haven't used yet, while Crown City to Mario Brothers Circuit still gives us that course backwards. And that's it. 32 courses, now with 14 unique destinations. But if you really didn't want to use the Peach Stadium Oval twice, thankfully that's not too hard to avoid. Just go Cheep Cheep Falls to Moo Moo Meadows like we did before, then go to Peach Stadium for the forwards track for a little variety, then back up to Toad's Factory and continue the tour from there. Sure, we're down a unique destination, but given the point of this whole tour was variety, maybe driving in the same circle twice in opposite directions wasn't a good idea. Now, I suppose someone could say, oh, but I don't want to have the starting course be 3 laps either, but this video was already too long before all this 32 race nonsense, so this is officially where I'm drawing the line, and you can figure it out yourself. Now, after all that, you may be thinking, okay, but why make a video on this? Why should I care? And the answer is, of course, I don't know, I was bored, I guess. But in all seriousness, I actually had a lot of fun putting together these stupid routes with dumb requirements nobody but me cares about. And I guess I wanted to share how much of a rabbit hole this becomes once you start putting restrictions on yourself. Also, to be perfectly honest, I didn't actually test these routes before planning the route and writing the script. But as part of the footage gathering, I actually did end up doing the entire first route I created, along with every unique connected route mentioned, and I've got to say it was more fun than I thought it would be doing solo. Yeah, I know I crapped on the connected routes a lot, and yes, count me as one of the many who just wanted 3-lap races mode for online, because I still say playing these courses in a competitive lobby or online with randoms just isn't fun. Also, yes, many of these routes are terrible under any circumstances, honestly. However, this did remind me that if framed in a way of an actual road trip or a trip around the world, these routes can give the whole event a bit more of a sense of purpose than simply just playing all 30 tracks in a row would, and I'm glad they're here. But, you know, maybe just let us play them on our own terms, Nintendo? Anyways, if you had some weird route and some weird reason you'd include it in an all-cup tour, let me know in the comments, and of course, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching.